Right. Today is the 36th talk in our series of talks on various aspects of sporting art. It's difficult to believe that we started this project in the dark days of COVID in 2020 when we had to cancel our programme of visits. Again, I'd like to thank Jamie Rowntree of Rowntree Tryon Gallery for sponsoring this series. As I've said before, it means that we can continue to put on these talks for free. It also means that non-members and, more importantly, future members can join us. Again, we're recording the talk for future reference. I would also like to remind you that previous talks are on the BSAT website. Today, I'm delighted to welcome Charlotte Goodhew, who is the Collections and Programme Manager of Marylebone Cricket Club, or MCC, at the Lord's Cricket Ground. Charlotte is going to talk about the art collection at Lord's. Charlotte joined Lord's in 2008. She's responsible for the care and display of 3,000 pictures in the collection, but also for the development of the collection. There's an active programme of commissions to artists for portraits of our cricketing heroes. Charlotte's previous overseas roles include assistant curator at Dallas Museum of Art, guest curator at the National Gallery of Namibia, and artist assistant to the award-winning Afro-American artistic curator Fred Wilson at the Peggy Guggenheim Collection, Venice Biennale. One intriguing aspect of her career is her life membership of the Royal Geographical Society, which was awarded to her for her research work into rock art across South Africa. Perhaps there's a direct link to the sporting art of today. Charlotte will be happy to answer any questions at the end of the talk. All you have to do is type the questions under the Q&A tab at the bottom right of the screen. You type the questions and I'll put them to Charlotte at the end of her talk. So, with no further ado, over to you, Charlotte.
Hello everyone, it's great to be here and I'm excited to share some of the work I've been working on over the last decade at MCC Museum. So I'm just going to share my screen with you for the presentation.
I think you have to double click.
I need to switch on. Can you hear me okay, Tim?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'll get started then. So this is the MCC Collections at Lord's Cricket Ground. We're based in Marylebone. As Tim said, I'm the Collections and Programmes Manager responsible for the care and display of the collection. If you would like to come and visit us, we have tours, specialist art tours and public tours, and that's our Instagram hashtag there, at Home of Cricket. So I'm just going to the next slide. So at Lord's, we have a museum, a library, and an archive dedicated to collecting, documenting, safeguarding, and displaying the art and heritage of cricket for all to enjoy. We've got a really wide membership, and lots of people come to the collection. So just to give you an idea, we have 23,000 members. Throughout the year, we have 60,000 people coming to us on public tours. Many of these are from India, actually. Over sort of half of them are from India. And it sort of really depends on what cricket playing nations are with us for the summer. So we have a lot of, during the Ashes, we have a lot of Australians coming over, etc. And then we have a lot of private tours. So I give specialist art tours that I host for different sort of art interest groups. And then we have events such as Book of the Year. So in our library, we have around 30,000 sort of books and periodicals. And every year there's a sort of half a dozen books that make our shortlist for this Book of the Year, which is presented at MCC and awarded. Sorry, let me just go back. And then we have a variety of community groups that come to us, including schools on visits, and they come to watch matches, visit the collections, do sort of research and workshops inspired by our art collection and artifacts. And in terms of spectators, we've got sort of 500,000 plus people coming into the ground during the season, and a huge audience online and sort of via TV channels, etc. So just to give you a bit of the history, Lord's was founded by Thomas Lord, so the ground is named after Thomas Lord. It was founded in 1787, just down the road in Marylebone. In 1840, Lord's moved to its current site in St John's Wood. The collection was established in 1890. So the secretary at the time ransacked all the auction houses for anything, any art and artifacts related to cricket. And as a result, the collection early days was quite eclectic. We have some cannonballs from Sevastopol, and apparently cricket was played during the Crimean War. So we have those cannonballs, we have furniture pieces with cricket stumps and cricket balls like carved into them. We have a range of paintings and prints and all sorts of things. So that's when the collection first started. MCC owns the ground and it manages the laws or the rules of cricket. So that's its kind of job now. It also keeps the art and the history of cricket for all to enjoy. The library was established in the 1980s, and then when I joined MCC in 2008, we were able to establish the museum and archive, meaning that we brought it up to museum accreditation standards. Previously, it was a very sort of ad hoc collection. There were a lot of duplicates. And a lot of items were sort of damaged or falling apart. We had a big sort of off-site storage facility that was not adequate. So when I came on board, my job was to save things, to clean and preserve things, to conserve items, and also to undertake a massive cataloguing project. So yes, as I said, I established the museum collection. I established what we had and where it was. This was really fundamental to being able to retrieve information, because it is such an amazing resource and we want to make sure that people can use it. So I set about cataloguing approximately 90,000 items, around 3,000 of these are pictures, and that includes like works on paper, so sketches and prints and watercolor drawings, as well as paintings. And out of those, we have like 336 portraits. I worked with a dedicated team of 6 documentation officers to go through and catalogue all of these items and store them correctly, making sure that we could easily retrieve them and that we could link the item and its information together. And this has formed the basis of our online catalogue. So if there's anything in particular that I'm talking about today that you would like to know more about, you can log on to lords.org and search our entire collection. We are an amazing information and resource centre, and we have a lot of researchers and students that come to us. Also, a lot of journalists undertake research on site at the library or remotely. So we have a dedicated team of 1 librarian and 2 archival officers there to help with any inquiries. When everything was catalogued and I was able to look at the collection in full, I was able to identify duplicates and trends and gaps in the collection. So when I wrote our acquisition policy, it was very focused on filling those gaps. So some of those gaps are, for example, women's cricket. We hardly had any items to be able to tell the story of the history and development of women's cricket. So I addressed this more recently in an exhibition that I put on that I will talk about later. So that's just to give you a bit of an overview. Okay, today, so I'm going to talk about some of the highlights from the collection, and I've particularly pulled out some of our paintings and artworks for the purposes of this talk. We do also have a wide collection of ceramics, silverware, glassware, textiles, equipment, a whole range of items. I'm also going to talk about some of the key exhibitions I put on. I mean, we have one or two new exhibitions and displays every year. I've just picked out a couple to talk to you about. I'm also going to look at some of our loan program, and our new commissions, our portrait commissions, and some of the other art projects that we undertake. And then finally, I'm going to show you some of our display areas. So you've got the iconic long room gallery, which is broadcast across the world. We have sky cameras in there during the cricket season, so you can see that gallery, and you can see the players walking onto the pitch, and history being made in front of your eyes. And then we have a museum facility as well that I will also talk to you about. Okay, so some of the highlights from the collection. I've pulled out this picture, a cricket match in Marylebone Fields, 1740 by Francis Hayman, who was a Royal Academarian. It's oil on canvas. The painting was traditionally believed to depict Marylebone Fields, which is now Regent's Park. It shows the early traits of the game of cricket, the curved bats, the two-stump wicket. Today it's three. So back then it was two stumps, underarm bowling, umpires carrying bats, and two scorers in the foreground with notching sticks to score the match. Hayman painted this painting by Francis Hayman acted as the template for many of 18th century and early 19th century depictions of cricket. In fact, I curated an entire display several years ago examining how this image has been used. It was first used to illustrate the laws of cricket at the time. The majority of the population in British were illiterate and relied on images strongly. So it was an engraving of this was printed onto a handkerchief, and along the outside were written the laws of cricket. It was referred to when setting up the pitch, for example, and there are only 5 known examples of this handkerchief in existence, and 2 are in the collection at Lord's. So engravings of this image were also printed in books and onto accessories. So for example, we've got a patch box and a snuff box in the collection with this image reproduced on those accessories. It also appears on a punch bowl, and sort of ceramic cups and other ceramic wares. From very early on, cricket was seen as very fashionable and being associated, being a desirable game to be associated with if you were sort of upper class. In the 1980s, Liberties produced a limited edition run of silk scarves with this engraving on it and the laws around the outside. So the artist, Francis Hayman, was a founding member of the Royal Academy. And he was also a set designer, illustrator at Theatre Royal Drury Lane. Together with William Hogarth, he is credited with other early depictions of cricket, which decorated some of the supper boxes at the famous Vauxhall Pleasure Gardens. And actually, we lent this picture to the National Museum of Sporting Art in Newmarket when it first opened. And this picture was on loan for a year. Another highlight in the collection is Young Cricketer Portrait of Lewis Cage, 1786 by Francis Coates, also a Royal Academarian. So this is quite unusual because the boy's kind of lightly grazed knee and unbuttoned finery suggests that he's sort of fresh from a game of cricket. Normally in portraits around this time, you see sort of boys and gentlemen in their buttoned up finery, looking just like perfection, very sort of posed portraits. So this is quite unusual in that it actually looks like Lewis Cage has been playing cricket. It's a very sort of genuine depiction. He's got this very confident clothes and adult clothing, suggesting greatness beyond his years. Which is a common theme in portraits of children around this time. They would be dressed in adults' clothing. Little is actually known of the sitter Lewis Cage, although he is mentioned in correspondence by Jane Austen and had strong connections with cricket's heartland of Kent. There's 3 different versions of this picture, and all 3 have been hung in the Lord's Long Room Gallery during the last century. And in 2008, MCC acquired the original, which is painted by Francis Coates. And Francis Coates was director of the Society of Artists and founding member of the Royal Academy. He lived and worked in Marylebone around the time this picture was painted. Okay, so I have another highlight here, and I just wanted to show you this picture of W.G. Grace, 1890, because it was our very first portrait commission. Prior to this, MCC had been buying art and artifacts at auction houses and galleries and from private collectors, but this is the first time that they look at actually commissioning a portrait. Okay, just bear with me. So yes, this is a full-length portrait of W.G. Grace, and he's wearing the scarlet and gold cap of MCC. This red and gold is the colour of the club at Marylebone Cricket Club. He's standing at the wicket in front of the real tennis courts at Lord's, or the old real tennis courts. Today, and it's by the British painter and illustrator Archibald Stuart Wortley. W.G. Grace was the first true sporting celebrity, the most famous man in Victorian England, and a cricketer who amassed more than 50,000 runs and almost 3,000 wickets in first-class cricket. His career lasted 43 years, and he made his first appearance at Lord's in 1864 when he was just 15, and he made no fewer than 38 centuries either at Lord's or for MCC. And the members at the time were invited to donate £1 each for this portrait to be commissioned. A letter went out from the committee inviting a subscription so that this portrait could come to fruition. And then we move on to exhibitions. So I just wanted to highlight a couple of exhibitions that I've been working on. This one was called L.S. Lowry, Crowds and Cricket. And it was a response because MCC purchased a sketch of a cricket match by Lowry. And we wanted to show it in a sort of a context. So Lowry only painted 5 cricket scenes. However, he produced 10,000 pictures, largely depicting crowds. But as I said, only half of these actually depicted, only a handful of these actually depicted cricket, and one is owned by MCC. So let's just go to the next one, because I just wanted to highlight this image, the cricket match and cricket sideboard. So this was a key piece in the exhibition that was on loan to us. And I really wanted to highlight it because I think it shows the development of Lowry's artistic language. He considered this picture to be his most successful crowd scene ever, and he writes this in a note on the back, which is really remarkable considering how many crowd scenes he produced. I think the influence of the French artist Adolphe Vallet can be seen in Lowry's treatment of the crowds here. They seem to be dotted around the top half of the picture, described using an impressionist technique known as broken colour, in which paint is dabbed onto the canvas rather than mixed beforehand. It gives a visual effect of light falling over the figures as they funnel down the road and swirl around the boundary. In contrast, the players on the pitch are outlined in black and suspended on their toes. They show Lowry's shift away from an impressionist to a symbolist approach to time. In the lower section, the naive and stylized figures, reminiscent of primitivism amuse themselves. This scene was informed and acquired by the chemical manufacturer Alec Legart, who hung it in the president's room at Lancashire Cricket Club during his tenure, 1991 to 1992. He was probably Lowry's biggest patron, and he had a huge personal collection of Lowry's work. Lowry was actually more interested in football and painted thousands of scenes related to football. But his friend and president of Lancashire Cricket Club, Alec Legart, convinced him to start painting cricket, not playing it, painting it. And he described to him, the rules of the game, and they would watch together. And it was quite convenient, really, because Lancashire Cricket Club was just a stone's throw from where Lowry was living at the time. So if you want to know more about this exhibition, there's actually a video and a link for a sort of online exhibition that we will post in the comments. Another exhibition that I curated was the evolution of women's cricket. As I mentioned, women's cricket, there was a massive sort of gap in the stories that we could tell because we just didn't have the items to tell the stories. So I went out to identify and collect items related to women's cricket. And I came across the Women's Cricket Association archive, which was housed at Somerset Museum. And it was, 30 odd sort of archival boxes, uncatalogued. Because I had resources for this exhibition, I was able to take the archive back on site at Lord's. And the team went through it, catalogued it, put it online, and preserved it, and we safekeep it at Lord's. So we were able to tell the story of women's cricket for the first time. So this landmark exhibition traced the development of women's cricket from its burlesque beginnings in the 18th century to a pioneering professional sport. It was actually impossible to highlight all of women's achievements in cricket through one exhibition, and there are so many gaps. For example, the lack of non-white women, which was obviously problematic and reflects the fact that women's cricket in England has historically been white and middle class, though globally there has been more diversity. So I'm just going to talk about this image. This is a coloured lithograph from 1890 showing the red team against the blue team. This cricket match was like a performance rather than a serious match. People would pay to see women playing cricket because it was entertaining. So this is the first record of women being paid to play cricket, but their coach actually run off with the funds that they raised. And this lithograph just shows that sort of one of these matches in progress. So they would tour around the country, the red and the blue team, and just put on these sort of shows for people to watch. So in its early beginnings, women's cricket was really seen as burlesque and sort of for entertainment only. And then also in the exhibition, we had one of the costumes that they were wearing in that lithograph that you saw. And this costume is from 1890. And we refer to it as a costume because it was almost like a show that the women were putting on. They weren't actually sort of seriously playing. Before the 1900s, women usually played in long skirts and blouses, and they sometimes wore bonnets. It's rumoured that Christina Willis, whose brother John was the first cricketer to bowl a round arm at Lord's in 1922, invented this method because the ball was becoming entangled in her skirt when she bowled. So, as you saw in that very early image by Francis Heyman, the bowlers were bowling underarm. Today, they raise the arm above the head and they bowl overarm. And it's thought that that is because when women were playing in these long skirts, the ball would get caught. This is a portrait of Thomas Hope of Amsterdam playing cricket with his friends in 1792 by Jacques Sablet. It was lent, well, it's been lent to a few exhibitions. It's a very sort of popular piece that we get asked to lend out. Most recently, it was in an exhibition or several exhibitions in France, touring exhibitions. So I went out with the portrait to help install it. Sorry, just bear with me. Just got some notes on the picture that I will read to you. So the portrait of Thomas Hope, he's playing cricket with his friends. It was purchased by the club in 1968 and is often requested for loan. The most recent exhibition was a retrospective dedicated to the neoclassical artist Louis Goldhier. Thomas Hope was Goldhier's most loyal patron and collected many of his works. He commissioned this exceptional portrait of himself when he was on his grand tour. And he requested that it was a small picture which he could carry under the arm. Other patrons followed suit, and the artist developed a new format for these small portable portraits. Thomas Hope was the son of an English father, long established in Amsterdam as a banker, and his mother was Dutch. He is shown playing cricket in the Roman Campagna, and you can see Mount Vesuvius in the background. Hope devoted much of his youth to this extended grand tour that he was on. It lasted almost 10 years. And he was 22 when this portrait was painted. So just sort of moving forwards, a major part of my role is commissioning portraits. We have about 300 portraits in the collection. Again, over the last several years, I've been looking at filling gaps in our collection. So we only had a couple of portraits of women. And last year, I was able to commission a few more. We've also been doing some overseas players. And this is Portrait of Sachin Tendulkar by Stuart Pearson White. I've worked with Stuart a few times on portrait commissions. He did a few other Indian players for us as well. And this portrait is oil on a brazed aluminium. And if you get a chance to see it in life, you can see that it's quite iridescent. The background's very iridescent. And Sachin is painted larger than life. Sachin is an iconic former Indian captain. And you can't see, but in this painting, he's wearing his India Test shirt. It was painted from a photograph taken in 2017 when Stuart Pearson White visited Sachin in his home in Mumbai. So we like it if all our artists can actually meet their sitters, at least, even if they do go on to work from photographs. Stuart said to me that Sachin is sort of hero worshipped in his country in India. He played international cricket for 24 years, and Sachin remains the all-time highest run scorer in both ODI and Test cricket. What I think is interesting about Stuart's work is the fact that he's able to create this illusion of skin with sort of ordered brush strokes, which he layers on top of a pre-existing abstract painting. So the background, he abrased the aluminium and just created a very abstract background and then painted the portrait on top of this. And it sort of creates this sense of a dramatic tension between order and disorder, form and space, and age and time. So this is our third portrait of a female cricketer, and it's the portrait of Charlotte Edwards by Hero Johnston. It's acrylic on canvas. And in the portrait, Charlotte is shown. So Charlotte Edwards is the captain of women's cricket, and she was just announced as captain at the time of this, at the time when this portrait was unveiled. And in the portrait, you can see her sitting at the home dressing room balcony wearing her 2009 2020 World Cup kit. And the portrait shows her in this really commanding stance with her eyes fixed on an empty ground at Lord's, as though she's kind of calculating her next move. The artist said to me that when she met Charlotte, she couldn't keep her eyes off the pitch. She always seemed to be planning her next match and her next move. Very, very focused. And Charlotte Edwards said to me that she feels very at home at Lord's Cricket Ground. She feels very relaxed there. And she feels like the pavilion is an extension of her almost. And the artist responded to this idea by painting her skin in the same tones as the terracotta pavilion in the background. Hero, the artist, also said to me that Edwards noted this sense of being at home at Lord's, despite the fact that when she first played at the grounds in 1979, sorry, at 1997, the vote to admit women as members of MCC was still 1 year away. Edwards represented her country over 300 times, winning 2 World Cups, including the 2020 World Cup against New Zealand at Lord's in 2009. And she also lifted the Ashes five times across her career, which spanned 2 decades. And shortly before this portrait was unveiled, Edwards was announced as England head coach, and she continues this distinguished career. So it was really thrilling to be able to recognize her and celebrate her in a portrait. And it's always really nice when players are able to give their time or make time for these portraits. This portrait was painted sort of 70% from life and a tiny proportion from photograph. So looking at other commissions, this is a slightly different project. So I spoke about the Women's Cricket Association archive that I transferred from Somerset Museum. So this is an amazing resource, and it contains thousands of photographs. And we don't really have many pictures or displays currently related to women at Lord's. So I wanted to really bring this archive to life, and I established this project, which is called the Women's Retrospective Art Project, based on the archive. So I'm working with an artist called Angela Bell, who paints vintage photographs. So she doesn't actually paint the players themselves, she actually paints the photograph. So she will paint in black and white, and she will document any kind of scratches or curling of edges of the photograph. And we're doing a whole series of these from the Women's Cricket Association archive to bring the archive to life and to also fill some gaps in our displays and in our artworks. Other projects include MCC Young Artist of the Year. So we've worked with a few different artists who have toured with cricket teams overseas and documented cricket being played. In 2002, we commissioned Andy Pankhurst to go on the England tour of Australia. And the result was an extensive portfolio of cricket matches, training sessions, as well as portraits of players. So that's really nice to have, something a bit different, just capturing and documenting cricket as it's being played. Another project was with Amina. She did a series of art workshops for us. She teaches all over the world, and uses art as sort of therapy sometimes as well. She encourages people to express themselves no matter what their artistic capability is. So we had a really fun session with her where lots of groups came in to create their own pictures and portraits. And actually, Amelia really inspired me to develop a whole workshop series. Some of the workshops were used as sort of team building exercises with the MCC staff. So we did a whole portrait series where we sat opposite someone from a different department, and we would sort of close our eyes, draw a picture of the person, how we kind of remember them, and then open our eyes and kind of draw a portrait of them without taking our pencil off the page. And we did like different exercises just as kind of icebreakers to get to know each other. And I think sometimes when you're painting a portrait of someone, you're really looking at them. And especially when you start conversations, you start to understand them more. And then perhaps the pictures that you're doing will change. And it was a really nice way to get to know my colleagues at work. And that was inspired by Amelia. So this is one of our display spaces. This is the iconic long room gallery. A few years ago, I reinstalled the permanent collection. As you can see, some of the pictures that were taken down are on the floor, and we were putting up the portraits. I just wanted to show the range of portraits in the collection. And the different sort of styles, and sort of bring everything together. You can't see the entire room, but it did have a really nice, or it does have a really nice symmetry to it. There's all these full length portraits looking inwards to the central doors, and then there's a lot of sort of mirroring and contrast. And I work with a professional hanging team called JPW to hang these pictures. And when we're kind of planning a reinstallation and a picture hang, so much thought goes into it. One of the techniques that we're using is developing these kind of puzzles that you can see, because it really is like a puzzle. Once you move one picture, you need to move another one. And because we're very short on storage space, we really have to use the display space well. And you can see that we've printed out sort of elevations of the walls, and we have sort of matched pictures, on the tables before actually installing them on the walls, just to make sure that they work, that they're complementary. In the background, you can see two very contrasting portraits, one of the Earl of Winchelsea, in the 1700s, and then one of Brian Lara, painted more recently in 2005. He's shown shirtless, painted in this maroon colour, which is the colour of West Indies. And in contrast, you can see the Earl of Winchelsea in his buttoned up finery and his powdered wig. So I just wanted to show that kind of, contrast, and also, it's a little bit humorous as well, because in this room, normally during the season, the members will wear their shirt and their tie. So having Brian Lara shirtless, painted in maroon, did really encourage people to look again. And I think the picture slightly disrupts the space, which is great because we want people to have discussions and to notice the pieces and the displays that we're doing. And then this is our museum. So our museum is Converted Rackets Court, which was founded in the 50s. You can't see the whole museum here, but you can see below there's some drawers, and up above there's some boxes. It's like an open storage display museum. And we have these 6 glass cases and 6 screens in this space, enabling us to be quite flexible with the displays that we show, so we can easily switch objects in and out. This was part of the women's cricket exhibition, and I looked at 6 different themes, and I highlighted 6 different players, 6 different female cricket players in this exhibition. But the next exhibition will be more modular. So each case will have its own sort of separate display. And that's me. I'd love to connect. If you would like to learn more, here's my email and my Instagram tag. Thank you so much. If there's any questions, please let me know.
Charlotte, thank you very much for both for time and for an interesting talk. It's much appreciated. There
Welcome.
are some questions. First of all, from me, commissioning paintings is quite expensive. How are your developments funded?
Yeah, so we have a few different sort of avenues. We've started doing sponsored portraits now. So I'm working on a sponsored portrait at the moment, fully sponsored by a private individual. Um, but the club does have an acquisition fund that it invests into the collection. And I guess it feels like it's worth it. Um, because often these pictures, like the Charlotte Edwards portrait, was broadcast on BBC News. It was in a lot of the papers, and the time you pay for like an advert, it kind of offsets the cost. Um, if the image is reproduced in like a magazine or a newspaper, it's almost like an advert for MCC and for the museum collection. So it kind of, I think the club kind of feel that it's worth like the investment.
So you're using it for general promotion as well as for building the archive.
Exactly.
Um, One of the first questions was to me rather than to you, but it was about portraits or pictures of cricketing scenes, portraits in the BSAT collection. The answer to that is we do have one or two pictures, but it's not a subject that we've really developed or concentrated on. I think from memory that we've got a series of caricatures of well-known cricketers from the 70s and maybe one or two other pictures. So uh, we've not been in direct competition to you for pictures at the moment.
And can I just add to that, if anyone, we do lend to other museums. We very actively lend. So if anyone has any exhibition proposals, like please do approach us. We love to like partner with different museums. And I often think there's no point in competing against each other at auction, like when we would be lending anyway. So yeah.
Well, that's good to know. And you were very generous in the loans you get lent us, or you sent to the opening of the museum in 2016, which you referred to. One of the questions is really a link to a lot of the activity of the Horse Racing Museum and BSAT, which is links to racing. Um, I mean, a couple of points. The There's a picture by Stubbs that we have been given, which is a portrait of a horse owned by Lord Bolingbroke in about 1770. And it looks as though there's a cricket match going on in the background. We haven't received the picture yet, but I think it's something that we will be exploring. But that link between cricket and horse racing has been quite an important link. I recently did a lot of research on a cricket match at Newmarket, which drew, I think, 6,000 spectators in 1750. And gambling was very heavy as well. It's something that cricket avoids, I think, in a lot of its discussion, but cricket did attract a lot of betting in the early days. Um, the Duke of Richmond, was he, where did the original rules of cricket come from? Was the Duke of Richmond involved? Is
I'm not sure. I have to get
one
back
of
to
the
you on that
questions,
one. Yeah.
not something for us to work on then
Yes.
in terms of finding an answer. Um, you used the phrase the burlesque beginnings of women's cricket, and I think that's has attracted a lot of attention as to uh, what you meant by that.
Well, yeah, just as it was seen as, yeah, like entertainment, it wasn't taken seriously. It was almost like comical, unfortunately. Like, especially in the, because women have been playing cricket since forever, just as long as the men. But in the sort of Victorian period, it was seen as really like unladylike. and the ladies that did play it were kind of like looked down on, or it was seen as yeah, comical or for entertainment, which is a real shame. So it wasn't taken seriously. And that lithograph shows, you know, this kind of performance, the red team and the blue team playing. And it's just so sad that this is the first time that women were paid to play, and yet the coach ran off with the money.
So they never got paid,
They never got paid.
provided the entertainment, but didn't get paid.
Mm,
And that is the earliest picture of women playing cricket, is it?
no, we do have some earlier ones. Yeah.
Um, you mentioned a lot of Indian or visitors from the the Indian continent come to there. Is there a sister organization? Do you partner with similar organizations in India?
There was talk of a cricket museum in Mumbai, and I think a collection was started. Our former curator was sort of advising on that collecting project. Um, I don't know if they are established. Since those early meetings, we haven't had any contact, or I haven't had any contact from a sort of Indian Cricket Museum. There is the World Sporting Museum in Melbourne, and we work quite a lot with them. And also the State Library in Victoria. We have lent the Ashes Urn actually to the State Library as part of a major exhibition and refurbishment project that they had. The Ashes Urn and other items have been on tour around Australia. And we've worked with different art museums and galleries as well overseas. Um, yeah, but you kind of find like a cricket museums are mostly in like the UK. There's more than one cricket museum here. I just lent an exhibition to Lancashire Cricket Club Museum, and they're sort of doing a massive like refurbishment and opening a new museum there. And then you've got one at Glamorgan and Somerset Museum in Yorkshire. They all have cricket club museums. Their collections reflect their counties. Um, yeah,
And those are some of the lending exhibitions that you have to organize each year.
yeah,
Um, I think the whole working together with other museums, sporting museums, is something that should be encouraged, isn't it? It's
yeah.
um,
100%
you-
agree. We're part of the Sports Heritage Network. And even if we can't physically lend items, we will have online exhibitions. And we're always open to, yeah, collaborating. We've got strong links with the Hockey Museum. And actually, when I was doing the Women's Cricket Exhibition, I realised that so many of those players were not only sort of top of their game at cricket and captaining cricket matches, they were also captains of like British lacrosse and hockey as well.
well, CB Fry comes to mind. He was playing cricket, football, rugby, running, athletics, jumping.
Yes.
Yes, if you were good at one thing, you were good at many. So, well, I think, Charlotte, we've had a lot of your time. Appreciate the time that you've given to us, much appreciated. And I'm sure we will want to follow up and find out more about what's going on at Lord's. We have had one or two visits in the past, but there's always something new from what I hear that you're doing that should encourage us to come back and
Yes, I mean, we've got
visit.
three new portraits going to be unveiled next year and two sort of art projects as well. So, yeah, it's amazing to work in a collection that's sort of so actively collecting. Yeah, it's a real privilege. I was delighted to join you today. And if anyone's interested to learn more, please do get in touch. I'd love to link up, and we're always open to new partnerships and and ideas and projects.
So thank you, Charlotte, for your talk this afternoon and for answering the questions. Just for viewers, the next talk in the series will be on Thursday, 29th of January, again at 2 o'clock, when Patricia Allison, Deputy Director of the National Museums of Scotland, will be talking on Sir Edwin Landseer's famous portrait of the Monarch of the Glen. And that will be followed on Thursday, 19th of February, when Neil Kennedy will talk to us about the equestrian artist, Linwood Palmer. As I've said before, we are preparing a further series of talks for next year, and I'd like to thank Sally Bills for arranging the programme. And if you've got any ideas of who can talk or any volunteers for giving lectures, we'd be pleased to hear from you, or please contact Sally. So thank you very much, Charlotte. Very enjoyable, enjoyed it. Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you everybody for joining us. And please enjoy the festive season as it comes up. Thank you.
And that's a thank you from me as well. Thank you for your time and a very interesting talk. I've learnt a great deal more than I knew. So much appreciated. I have a list of attendees for the talk, and I will send each of them the video links independently and your contact details. So if anybody wants to speak to you again or has any further questions, they should be able to contact you direct.
Just before we go, I've got a note that says it was the second Duke of Richmond and the second Viscount Middleton created the first set of formally agreed cricket rules. Duke of Richmond was heavily involved with racing as well. So that was the link and an answer to the question earlier. So I'll follow up anyway, Charlotte. So thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.